according to a report this week from Tungela Resources, South Africa's coal exports to Europe increased eightfold first half of 2022 compared to the same period last year, as demand for the fossil fuel jumped in anticipation of the ban on Russian coal. As part of its sanctions on Russia for its invasion of Ukraine, the European Union established an import ban on coal from that country since April. On August 10th, the restriction went into force. Prior to the prohibition, European nations began obtaining coal from other nations like South Africa, since they had been moving from expensive natural gas to coal and previously importing 45% of their coal from Russia. Joining us to discuss further, Oluwatomi Mayowa, who is an analyst with Financial Derivatives Company Limited. Oluwatomi, good morning to you. Thanks for joining us. I guess we can start with the grain exports. As far as the impacts that we've had on the closure of the ports in Ukraine, not being able to get those grain exports, how bad has that impact been as far as food security in Africa is concerned?
As well known, Ukraine is the fourth largest exporter of grain, the fourth world largest exporter of grain, and both Russia and Ukraine accounts for about 40% of African supply of grain. And so the war in Ukraine has led to the blockade of the Ukraine's Black Sea ports and also sanctions on Russia's economy. And so this has led to a shortage of about 30 million tons of food, which has skyrocketed the price of food generally. And so, for example, in Egypt, we know that Egypt imports the highest wheat from Ukraine. And so this has actually led to a surge in the price of food. Also, considering the fact that also looking at Nigeria, we know that the flour is made from wheat, and we know how far the price of flour has gone by now, and even bread also. And considering the fact that people would have to move to closer substitutes, after seeing that the price of this has increased, of food made from grains have increased, they'll move to closer substitute, and as a result of that, the prices of those ones also increase. So in general, and this will call cross elasticity of and so in general, the price of food has actually increased and has caused high food inflation in many of these African countries. And so it has pushed many people below the poverty line. So a lot of people have become more poor in this, become poorer in Africa as a result of this.
Okay, great. So if this shipment now is heading out there and possibly supplies increase, you've seen the inflation figures, food inflation 22% for Nigeria. Headline inflation in Ghana is pushing 30%. Do you see inflation tapering across many of these African nations with this hopefully increase in supply?
Okay. For example, wheat price have actually fallen by about 30%, while corn price have reduced by about 20%. But talking about inflation in most African countries, we may not see that effect immediately. There will be a time lag, before that will begin to take place. And considering the fact that there are major, most of these African countries are currently experiencing currency weaknesses. For example, Nigeria, for example, Ghana. So those things are actually, recently, inflation have actually been largely fueled by currency weaknesses. And these weaknesses have been supported by the global interest rate hikes that have spiked capital outflows from many of these African countries. So this has actually, pushed their currencies, push down the value of their currencies. And so this can reduce the impact of the decline in global food prices for African countries. And also most of these African countries are experiencing insecurity, or let me say structural challenges. Let me not just use Nigeria as the whole. So they are having structural challenges which are also fueling inflation. For example, in Nigeria, despite the fact that we are now in harvest period in Nigeria, we are still seeing higher food. For example, we look at yam now, and this is a time for yam, but we are still seeing price of yam, the price of yam is still quite high. And so most of these farmers are saying they're not able to go to their farms because they are, there's insecurity, these guys are threatening their lives. And so this has actually, so all these things we also have these challenges, power cuts in South Africa, all those things can actually play into, reduce the impact of the fall in commodity prices.
Well, the governor of Cross River State, he released a list of about 36 special assistants, and he has a special assistant on yam exports. So maybe they'll solve it in Cross River State. Let's get to South Africa and the coal sales to Europe very quickly. What's the drivers there?
Yes, so as a result of the ban on Russian coal imports for European countries, was supposed to take effect as at August 10. But then the demand has actually increased because the price of natural gas has increased for European countries, and they are shifting to coal, as a source of energy. And so because of this shift, it has actually spurred demand for coal, and which they are also, looking towards South Africa to, fill up this demand they are having. So they are going to South African countries to fill up that demand, and so that's why there had been a spike in the revenue or in the sales of coal exports from South Africa.
We've run out of time, but there's a whole climate change discussion with renewable energy, fossil fuels, and South Africa. But hey, we'll talk about that another time. Thank you so much for joining us. Oluwatomi Mayowa, financial analyst with Financial Derivatives Company Limited. Appreciate you coming.